Good afternoon. Um, Ben Rubens, good to see everybody. I'm really incensed today, and I feel the time has come for a little bit more intensity in relation to what is happening in the United Nations at the moment. But before I talk about the United Nations and what's happening, I'm first of all going to talk to you about the history of the United Nations and why it plays a toll and why you hear about it in the news every day. So, just for your knowledge, right? The foundation of the United Nations was established in 1945, post World War II, to prevent global conflict. That was the reason why the United Nations was created, right? The United Nations Resolution 181 is the one in 1947 which recommended the partition and mandatory of Palestine, leading to the creation of the State of Israel. Remember what I just said. Secondly, there was a major geopolitical move in the region in the 70s with the expansion of the United Nations General Assembly to also include many newly independent Arab and non-aligned nations, which the way that the United Nations works, if you probably know, I'm not going to speak down to you. You probably know how it works. It's been done by a vote. Votes count, and there are major votees in that, like the United States and some of the bigger nations that get a larger say in matters that happen in the United Nations. One of the key United Nations facts that have happened that I'll talk about today, and why I'm so incensed, but I want to get to the history first, is that in 1975, there was a resolution in the United Nations, Resolution 3379, which determined that Zionism is a form of racism, which was an absolute bullshit lie that I will be totally black and white and say this is a total non-truth. And it was proven so. And there's some very famous speeches about that if you want to Google it yourself to have a look about that, with the American representative saying, I will not even give this notion a response. I will never stand and say that Zionism is racism, because it isn't. So I want to talk to you guys about the what's happening today, right? And this is why it's so current and why I'm so passionate about this, guys. And I'm really, really want to get to this. You know, I was brought up in a home whereby I respected my elders. I was brought up where the woman is an important part of our lives. We respect women. We are kind, you know, they are the strength of our family. You know, I was brought up with this notion that women are an important part of society. They're not tools. They're not, when I say tools, they're not just for washing up and cleaning and cooking and slave labor and all this sort of rubbish and sex toys. They are respected leaders of the family. You know, we have it in Jewish prayer. It talks about Eshes Chayil Miyimso. It talks about that in Hebrew. It means a woman of valor, and how we say a prayer about a woman every Friday night because we respect women so very much. So when I see that the special rapporteur, now a special rapporteur in the United Nations is somebody who investigates a specific area and is the sole representative of this area, okay? So there's a huge debate that's happening right now, right? So on October 7th, there is without a doubt, right, an absolute documented, and we're talking about a huge civil report documenting. It's called Silence No More: Sexual Terror Unveiled, the Untold Atrocities of October 7 and Against Hostages in Captivity. It's also a 300-page document that serves as a formal record, which is compiled by an independent Israeli investigative body, of which I've had the absolute honor of managing to see an interview with her, and about the terrible crimes that were committed. And I was just broken after seeing that. Now, why I'm talking up about this today? Why is this so important? So at this moment in time, so I just want to, before I get into that, let's talk about the principal author of this report was someone called Dr. Kochav El-Kayam Levi, a prominent international human rights lawyer and legal scholar, right? These are the people that created this report. And the findings were, as I said, about 10,000 photographs and video segments amounting to roughly 1,800 hours of footage they went through with over 430 in-depth testimonies, okay? Eyewitnesses, right? Core conclusions were there were 13 distinct patterns of abuse, and some of the abuse actually didn't have a definition before October 7 because they were so evil that they didn't have a name for it. So they had to come up with a name for some of the absolute disgusting, offensive rape, pillaging of children, of women, of family members having to have sex with other family members in front of their children, and absolute evil to its very basis, to its very foundation. It absolutely insults me as a human being to have to say this, that there are people that have done this to another people. This should affect every single human being on the planet. It should be a wake-up call that we currently have the United Nations, and they're currently arguing about whether or not there was sexual harm done on October 7th. Now, obviously there was, but it got to such a point, and I don't know whether you guys have the time to, and I'm kind of becoming quite a, I am learning, and I'm learning a lot about this, and I think the evidence that has come out of October 7th, and the thing, that came out of other than obviously the 1,200 people that were killed, just innocent civilians, and the 5,000 injured, and we're talking about the 250 hostages that were taken, that we finally got them back. But let's just talk about the sexual violence for a moment, because that hurt me the most. And I'm sorry to go on. I'm going to end this very shortly, but I will say this. When you see on the news somehow sounding some sort of very neutralized sort of report about the United Nations and how the rapporteur has said there were no sexual violence and basically it was made up. And after seeing all the credible evidence that I have seen, and some of the evil that actually happened, you please take it as, do not watch the line of the fake media, as Trump calls it, because that is true. The fake media just wants to push a line. The line is we want to keep an equilibrium. We want to sell papers. We want to sing to our Arab partners because it makes money. Or I don't have any problem with Muslims or Arabs or anything like that. Okay, I respect any of you. But what I don't respect is when you go and you violate women and children, and the hate and the atrocities that were done. I'm just going to repeat this one last time. Just remember this. There was an atrocities that came out of October 7 that they didn't have a definition for, and they had to come up with a new definition of a sexual crime because it didn't happen before. And this was about the family-related sexual misconduct and sexual violence that is so evil that it is beyond words. And I'll give you just one example. They found in dead bodies, they found penetrations of nails, of blades into sexual orifices. We're talking about sexual crimes of children having to have sex with their parents, disgusting, evil shit. And I'm sorry to swear, but I am incensed. This is for every woman on the planet. You deserve better, and you deserve respect, and you deserve honor, and you deserve to be kind and be kind to, and you deserve all the goodness the world can bring. You don't deserve this, and you certainly don't deserve the United Nations rapporteur saying this did not happen. And you know what? An Israeli, and I will end with this, and which is, I know I've gone to 10 minutes, but this is my last bit. You'll see a girl, if you're watching what's happening in the United Nations today, and she says to the rapporteur, the United Nations rapporteur into sexual violence, and she said, listen, look at me. She says, look at me. I am a victim of the sexual violence of Hamas. I was a victim. Look at me. And she couldn't look at her. It broke my bloody heart, and I think it should break everybody's heart. And I really do. And I think the time has come to hold the Arabs, not the Arabs, sorry, the Hamas accountable, the evil Hamas accountable, the Iran regime that is behind all of this, the Iranians that we're doing, that Trump's trying to do deals with. But, you know, overall, we've got to look at it in the bigger picture of things. But think about the insult to every woman on the planet. I only wish you love and kindness, and I hope for a better day. And I pray for when a woman isn't abused, and you're not a victim of sexual abuse, and children and families and men, and also men and women. And I pray only for love. Here's to a better world. God bless. Ben Rubens. Timing out.